What's going on, man?
Not much. Can you hear me?
I can. Hold on.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry, I just saw your text.
It's all good.
I'm an idiot. Where the hell are you that it's so warm?
It is a sunny day here in Seattle, but it is chilly.
I was gonna say you look like you're dressed for the summer, man. Like, I'm over here in winter gear.
It's warm in this room because the sun's coming in and like making it cook in here, but it's pretty chilly. But we're actually having a nice day, which is awesome because it's been shit for a while.
Hell yeah, man. Well, dude, thanks for doing this, man.
Thanks for the invitation. I've never been interviewed for anything other than shitty jobs before. So.
Yeah, man. Well, it's definitely isn't a formal podcast. This people often ask me, they're like, "Hey, do you have any prepared questions?" And I'm like, "No, man. We're just gonna hit play and do it live." So, yeah, man. But I am interested.
Do it.
But yeah, fucking do it live. Do it live. I'll do it. We'll do it live. Fucking stupid thing sucks. Yeah, channel my Bill O'Reilly. But yeah, I say the same thing at the beginning of every podcast, and I won't say it again now. I like to, the people I invite on are people that I know very vaguely things about that make them interesting, and I purposely don't go in any deeper than that because the way my logic is if someone met you on I always talk to people in the sauna at the gym. I've met more people than I can fucking count there. I don't have any like researched questions for them. I don't know anything about them. I just start talking to them and I find out who they are. So I find out someone interesting so that the podcast is interesting. So I'm not just, getting Bob from accounting, but I don't go any deeper than that because I want whoever's listening to this, I want them to feel like they're here and that they don't know you either. So let's just jump into it. Introduce yourself as much as you'd like, and let's go from there.
Well, I'll just say my name is Philip.
Okay.
And I'm just a guy out here in the world, and ever since I accidentally joined a cult in about 2003, I've been really fascinated with cults, just because of how close my encounter was with them. Mm-hmm. And so I eventually found that subreddit on Reddit there, the cults subreddit, and just made a post on there that I thought people might find interesting, that I joined a cult on accident because they're really crafty about it. They don't just say, "Hey, we're a cult." Yeah. And generally, no cult does that. Yeah. But usually, it looks like a cult because you've got like a bunch of people around like a leader guy, and usually the leader's there. Okay. But this was different. It was so large that it was like spread across the globe, across multiple countries. Oh, Jesus. And the guru guy was like pretty exclusive. Like I did eventually see him in person a couple times, but it was in Arizona and I'm in Washington. Yeah. And so it didn't seem like a cult at first. It seemed like a big Korean yoga company. Yeah. And then it didn't take me long though to where I was like, oh, that's what's going on here, and that's why they were acting that way. Yeah. And then you can see the design from the beginning. The moment you walk in the door, everything's designed just to slowly like rope you in and make you just turn over your whole life to them, ideally. Yeah. And you said fuck that noise. I did, and I was already committed. Not only financially, I'd signed up for a year because it was a better price that way. Mm-hmm. And it's just another way that got me roped in. Mm-hmm. But I also had friends. I had a whole, like, really a strong community in there. And I was looking for something spiritual because I am and was kind of a spiritual fellow. Yeah. And I have a lot of friends still that I grew up with, but I felt at the time when I was like 22 years old that I wanted just like deeper connections, deeper conversations about more important stuff other than just like what kind of rims people were saving up for their ride or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of the perfect storm where basically I started doing yoga because I had gotten into fitness and I started running, but then I was so tight in my body from running, I would like lay down and be spasming, and I didn't know how to relax. So I started doing yoga and found it very beneficial. And then I moved to a different neighborhood on the completely other side of Seattle, and started looking for a new yoga studio. And I was walking through the U District and the University District. For those who don't know, it's a northern part, kind of a hip, young part of Seattle.
Okay.
And I was just walking down the strip, and I saw it, and it said yoga, tai chi, meditation. And I was like, well, that sounds like all the things I'm into. And of course, they're casting a wide net there.
Yeah.
They'll just they're going to put any buzzword up there that they possibly could to get people to come in. So I go in, and there's a attractive young lady working there. And then I learned later that I was like the first person she talked to.
Oh, yeah?
And so she was super nervous. I was like the first customer that she ever encountered. And so she was very happy to see me and eager to talk to me, which I felt, like, oh, this young woman is giving me attention.
Yeah.
And she's attractive, and oh, sweet.
Yeah.
So this is cool. And then so she set me with an energy evaluation with the headmaster of their little place there. It did have sort of a martial arts vibe to the place. So I was like, okay, I guess like it's kind of different. It's kind of Asian. They're Korean, so they have like kind of a martial arts like background. And so they have like a headmaster. And I was like, okay, that seems cool enough. And then a few days later, I would go to my appointment with the headmaster guy, and we go into his office, and it's sort of like we do like a little meditation session, and it was not creepy, even though we were like in a room alone together. They light some incense and do a little meditation. And he had me lie down on the ground, and he starts kind of like poking at my belly, and pretty much, I'm sure it would work the same on everyone, but he was like, tell me when it hurts, and he'd like poke on my belly, and I'd be like, ow, and he'd be like, oh, that's not good. That's like an old person. You're only 22 years old. You've got like the body of an old man. I was like, oh, okay, if you say so, man. Yeah, I guess. And because there's I saw so many people there giving this guy so much respect. It kind of gives you this air like, oh, this guy must really knows what he's doing. Everyone here like is giving him respect. So he says you should start coming to classes right away. I was like, yeah, you didn't have to convince me. It seemed like an interesting thing to try out. And then once I started doing the classes, it was really weird, but I was okay with that because I'm a weird person. And like it was the type of thing, it was in the U District, so like sort of meathead college dudes would walk by and like bang on the windows and be like, hey man, look at you dumbass. And I was totally fine with that. I considered that like a challenge. Like, are you strong enough to do what you're gonna do even when like people are making fun of you or whatever?
Don't react to it.
And just keep on plowing forward on your path. And then so not long after that, I was into it. I thought it was really like just different, and it was playful, and there was a lot of people in there that really they were good people for sure. And even the people that were total devotees to the cult were like really sweet, nice people. They didn't know or think that they were doing anything wrong or harmful. And they invited me to this, it was like a youth conference. And that they said it was at their retreat center in Sedona, Arizona. And I come to find later that Sedona, Arizona is like a hub for like kind of metaphysical, new age
Okay.
kind of happenings.
Okay.
And it was like, okay, it was out in Arizona, and they said it's all the young people. You must go. They kept saying that you must go, and they said this guy's going, this girl's going, all the young people are going. So I was like, okay, it sounds cool. Like, how much is it? And it was like $700 for the weekend.
Jesus.
I was like, whoa, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you put it on a credit card? They're like really kind of pushy about the financial thing. I was just like, no way, man.
Yeah.
And so they knew how hard not to push me, and basically I negotiated with them down to $100
Okay.
for the weekend.
Okay.
And they just wanted people to be there, and they knew that if they could turn me into a master or like a teacher, that they would get so much more out of me anyway, just in terms of free labor, that it was worth it. And so I got a cheap plane ticket, flew out there, and I mean, just $100 for a weekend retreat's a screaming deal.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
I negotiated them down, and everyone else paid hundreds of dollars for it.
Yeah.
And then we got up there, and it was a trip, man. As soon as I got there, I found it was like a 2-hour drive, I think, from Phoenix. So I found some other people that were traveling to the conference that were also from just out of town. We met at the airport and like shared a shuttle van out to Sedona.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to know some of these people, and that I would come to know really well just on the shuttle ride out there. And then once we got there, there was like maybe like 700, 800 people out there, and it was this pretty elaborate like acreage where they had their retreat center, and there was a couple dozen structures and different buildings, and they had some portable kind of buildings and some big permanent buildings. So you got there, and it's like, whoa, man, this organization is really like pretty substantial. It's not just like these little shops.
Yeah, not just a bunch of crazy young 20-year-olds just like, yeah, we're going out. Seems like they got their shit together.
That there was millions, probably tens of millions of dollars involved, and there was at least a few hundred kids, young people from Korea.
Oh shit!
That had flown out there from Korea just for this thing. I think they were probably doing some other stuff, like maybe they were there for a couple weeks or a few weeks, and this weekend conference was just part of their trip. But we started getting into it, doing the energy work, and doing like group meditation.
What was the
stuff that was all?
What was the energy work?
They would have you do like exercises where a lot of it was like repetitive, but like you would kind of get into like a trance.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might just like there's a lot of tapping, which is like kind of an old school Asian kind of yoga thing to like move the energy. It wasn't just a Korean thing, but they would like tap on the head for a while, and then like you tap on your chest for a while, then you tap on your belly for a while, and you could just kind of move around the whole body doing that for an extended amount of time. It might be 20 minutes, it might be 10 minutes just to get warmed up, it might just be for like an hour, and then you would like sort of stop and meditate and feel the energy. And that was all well and good, and but it wasn't until the leader guy, this guru that they all basically worship as a living god, his name, they called him Ilchi Lee.
Okay.
Dr. Ilchi Lee. I doubt he's actually a doctor of anything. And I don't think that's his real name. It's sort of like one of the cult leaders usually take on like a new name that means something to them, like divine, the divine one or something.
Yeah.
And I think that's basic what his name translated to.
Yeah.
Was but he's known pretty much infamously now as Ilchi Lee.
Okay.
And I think we got there on a Friday, and it wasn't until Saturday night that he showed up, and they whipped everyone. It was the weirdest thing. They whipped everyone into the frenzy. Like we were in this main, like sort of gymnasium kind of area. It was like the main meeting hall where they could fit everyone in there. And he was about to show up, and they were like, "Tonight we are going to meet Il Chile. Like, can you believe this?" And everyone was like, "Wow!" And it was like, "Oh, okay." Like,
okay.
Yes, we're supposed to
get excited. All right.
Excited, and I played along with it like a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, all right, man. You know, I wasn't about to like take a bullet for the guy or anything, but they were getting. Yeah, I was just like, we're getting hyped up. All right,
cool.
Woo!
Yeah, cool. All right, yeah. I'll get nuts.
Whatever you say. Yeah, I was just having fun with it.
Yeah.
And then it was apparent that there were some people that were already true believers, as they say in like cult speak.
Okay.
It's like a term for people that are devotees and believe it 100%. They call them true believers.
Okay.
And you could see that there was people like genuinely like fucking hyped to the max, gritting teeth, like, yes, you know, kind of. Right? And then,
this is what I've been waiting for. Like,
oh yeah, and it was so funny how they hyped it up. Like, okay, 5 minutes, and then okay, everybody, like, straighten your hair out over 5 minutes. It was just the weirdest thing. And then he showed up and walked in the door, sort of like, "Hello, I'm here," and the place was just going nuts. And it was just such a crazy scene.
Okay.
And then he just, you know, kind of talked like cult leaders always do. They talk some like vague stuff about how like the world needs us. The world is dying, and we're going to save humanity. And then that is actually when they revealed like their sort of vision was that they had this vision that they were, which is actually quite commendable if it wasn't clouded by all the weirdness and the dark side of it, was that they wanted to save the world by creating 100 million dawn healers.
Okay.
And what they mean by dawn healers is their organization, which at the time was called Dawn Yoga.
Okay.
Spelled DAHN, like a Korean word. And like it created a lot of confusion. Everyone always thought it was like dawn, as in the morning, like morning yoga, dawn yoga.
Yeah.
Actually, it's Korean, DAHN yoga, and they wanted to create 100 million dawn healers, and it would create this like shift in the consciousness of humanity that would like get us back on the right path. And at the time, I was like, yo, that's cool. These people have a vision. They've got like a defined goal, and they're shooting for it with everything they have. And like, I can respect that. And I was willing to like be part of it and help out and be like a participant. But at no point did I think I want to leave my family behind, my friends, and my whole life behind, and just dedicate everything to this. But that's really what they wanted from us, especially the young people. They wanted young people that could become teachers and like lead their locations and just dedicate their whole life to it. And young people are easier to manipulate because not only have they have less experience, but they're less set in their ways. Yeah. They have less responsibility. They don't have like a family and a mortgage and a job.
Their brain isn't fully developed. Brain isn't fully developed till you're 25.
Yeah, exactly. And so they were really zeroing this, and eventually figured out that was the whole point of this weekend retreat, just for like young people. And there was older people there too, but I think they were invited because they had like a young energy. You know, it'd be like there'd be every so often like someone in their 60s or something, but it was like a real spitfire, like little old lady or like, you know, an older guy that was just kind of like, yeah, man, like, let's do it. Yeah. 95% like people in their 20s and maybe a few people in their 30s as well. But so I did that retreat, and it was fun and everything. And then the main thing that got me about that weekend was I made so many friends, and we would do these like meditations together, and immediately felt this bond with them because they were on like this sort of spiritual tip of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like looking for that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so came back to Seattle and continued going to classes. And actually the physical work was actually really powerful. And you'll find that with a lot of cults as well. Like there's some validity to like the physical practices.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of reminded me of when I read Malcolm X's autobiography. He talked about being in that Islamic Brotherhood, the Nation of Islam, is what they call it, and talked about when he was in that, and that's just straight up a cult. They had their cult leader, if you're not familiar with that, and it was his name. They called him the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Remember, they always had to call him the Honorable.
Yeah.
Malcolm X described how they were really adept at saving alcoholics.
Okay.
From their life of alcoholism. So there's always some validity to parts of the cult structure, or else it just like wouldn't take, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they had these practices that were, as far as I know, I could be wrong, but I believe they're rooted in like ancient Korean type of energy work, yoga, that's also just sort of rooted in the Tao, like Taoism.
Yeah. I'm familiar with Taoism. Yeah.
Nice. And so it was all really some really powerful stuff. I felt like I was clearing out like childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the more extreme things we did is they had another weekend of retreat, but it was in Seattle, and it was like, it wasn't overnight, but it was a 2-day intensive like thing where it was a good like 10 hours each day. And they actually rented out this big conference room at the REI, the main REI in Seattle. It was funny because we were all wearing like our martial art type. It was like a gi almost. Yeah. And that was like their uniform, which was pretty creepy in retrospect. And when I'd show, it was like I'd show my friends like the clips, like pictures from the weekend that I had with the yoga organization, and everyone's wearing white.
Yeah.
White. Yeah, and they're like, that looks kind of weird, man. I was like, yeah, it's a martial art thing. They're they're into martial arts. You know, they're Asian. That's what they do. And they're like, whatever. Okay, man. But then a couple hundred people show up at the REI wearing all white, and they're like, oh, okay. People are looking at it's kind of weird. But then I remember it was called Shim Sung, which I believe translated to true self.
Okay. And
it was all about finding your true self this weekend. And that was pretty much straight up like a cult deprogramming, like wipe the slate clean and start fresh type.
Okay.
And one of the without going into that weekend too much, one of the crazy things
you can go into it. I got all the time in the world, man.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go.
They had us hold this position. It was called crane something or other, but it was like a really uncomfortable position where we kind of like stood like this with our knees kind of pitched inward, like tented inward at each other, and you held this position. And they said that they were going to hold it like you just, no matter what, don't give up on the position. Like keep holding it, even if you cry or have to scream. You just have to hold it and break through the other side, and you will find your true self.
Okay.
And so I think they told us it was going to be 15 minutes. And then we were doing this. We were holding it, and I think they were playing some songs, and this was a good long time ago now, so I'm trying to recall what happened. They played some songs, and then they would sort of just talk to us for a while. There was a lot of stuff to like keep you distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was obvious after a little while that it had been longer than 15 minutes, like well longer. We're going into like past 20 minutes now, and people are starting to cry and stuff. And I felt my body starting to just like, palsy from trying to hold this thing. And it was like, but they were like, they would come around and it was especially the people, like the headmaster from my little location there. He was trying. I could hear his voice, and he was coming around me a lot, like trying to encourage me. And another common thing with cults is they create like a dialect that's only understandable within the organization.
Okay.
And so students, they called Do Wu Nim, which meant like students. So he would call me Philip Do Nim, and he'd be like, Philip Do Nim, you can do it. You can do this. Like, hold it. You are strong enough to do it. And I'd be like, okay, man. Like, whatever you say. And long story short, they had us hold that for 50 minutes.
Jesus.
And then when we stopped, I was actually kind of angry, like when we stopped, like, what the hell, dude? And the main guy that was actually, like, I think flown in from Korea, they had like a specialist to like lead this workshop. And he seemed like a really nice guy, you know, to be honest with you. Yeah. And he was like, how do you know how long you held that for? And everyone was like, he was like, it was longer than 15 minutes. And people were like, yeah, we know, guy. And he was like, you held for 50 minutes. And I couldn't tell you, essentially said, I couldn't tell you it was only going to be 50 minutes, or else you would have given up way too soon. We tell you 15 minutes, and then we tell you just 10 more minutes, and we tell you just 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
And that gets you to push through your barriers. And that was a common theme there, was getting you to push through barriers. Okay. A really common thing they had there was push-ups. They have you, it's like, how many push-ups do you think you can do? Like, I don't know, maybe 25 or something. And so, okay, you try. And then you get down on the ground and do push-ups. And I think I said I could do 25, and then I ended up doing like 28 or 29. And then they're like, all right, tomorrow you'll do 30. And then the next day I did 33 or something. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, see, you're pushing through barriers. And then your goal should be 100. And I was like, okay. I started working on doing 100 push-ups. And it was pretty empowering, I was like, dang, dude, I did 100 push-ups. Mm-hmm. I'm sure my form was absolutely horrible because that was not important. But I think I messed up my shoulder doing that. Right? But it was going deeper down the rabbit hole, making more friends. And they would do as much as they could to sort of separate you from the rest of your life. The more like, if you would give them an inch, they would like try to get you to come a couple inches past that. And like one thing, they would have little functions and whatnot, and they would have people volunteer. I think I volunteered to get some money taken off of my monthly thing. Mm-hmm. I would at one point I actually walked around canvassing a neighborhood with one of like the lower masters. We would walk around these neighborhoods, like just putting their little flyers in like mailboxes or handing them to people. And that felt weird for sure. And looking back, I was pretty embarrassed by that aspect. Like, man, I can't believe I did that. Yeah. But at the time I thought I was doing like a good thing and help people. And then the next step logically was to become a dawn healer. Mm-hmm. And I thought, totally. I've gotten a lot out of this, and I believe in this practice. I don't really care about the guru guy or whatever, but I like my friends. I like the headmaster guy, even though he's a little bit pushy. I thought he was definitely a powerful dude. He was like a Taekwondo expert or something. So he was pretty impressive in his abilities. And so I kind of looked up to him for that. And he was probably like in his mid to late 30s. And I think they actually put him, because he was kind of young and hip, even though he didn't speak English very well, but they put him at that location because young people would come in and like sort of vibe with younger guy. And it was just, everything was designed, for their end goal of, I think they believed in the 100 million healer thing, but overall the organization was just this like vacuum, like trying to suck people into the fold. And so the healer thing was like $5,000 or something. I think it was somewhere around that 4,600. maybe. And it was a week-long training this time in Sedona at the same retreat center again. And then I think it was 5 days, like a Monday through Friday thing. And then you did continuation classes at your home city for another like 3 or 4 months. And then you went back to the retreat center in Sedona to get like the final like graduation basically. Okay. And that was just like a 2-day thing. And so I've been involved for about 3 months. And then I went off to the healer training thing. And before I even left, I was having some reservations about like just a lot of stuff that was going on there. Like they were trying to like push me to spend less time with my family. Like I was like, I can't make that thing. I've got to have dinner with like my mom and my brother. And they'd be like, Philip Donin, those people don't understand. They don't understand. And I was like, okay, man, like, what's your problem with my mom?
Yeah, it's my family. It's
sweet. She's a sweet lady, man. That started to make me kind of raise an eyebrow.
You're too smart. You're too smart for it. That you've got too much. Your IQ is too high to be molded by them. You're like, dude, fuck off. That's my mom.
I guess so. I appreciate that as a compliment. I've done plenty of stupid things and probably will continue to. But
I think I look at my lifelong stupidity checkbox, and I got a feeling I'm just getting to the end of the first page. Like I'm 29, and I'm like, every once in a while, I'm like, I think I've got it figured out. I've done some dumb shit, man. That was in a fraternity in college, and it's in hindsight, I was like, oh damn, that was a cult. Like
what college?
A fraternity, a frat, like Greek life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was 19. I was in it for like 2 years, and I transferred schools. Hindsight, I'm like, that's a fucking cult. Like, but everything.
I'm sure there was a lot of shared aspects.
Absolutely, sure. But like what they had at the end was like, it did end, and they were transparent in that there's no like, you're gonna be a healer and we're gonna change the world. It's like, if you get in this frat, you're gonna drown in beer and pussy. It was like, so that was like, in that sense, they were transparent and they followed through with their promise, but. Yeah, it's
and they knew how to rope you in, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're 19. You're at a new college. All your friends went to different schools. You're away from mom and dad. You don't want to be GDI, a goddamn independent. You're at the dorms. Look at all these cool parties going on, and there's only a couple frat houses on campus. And unlike going to all these dorm parties where it's 10 guys to one girl, these parties it's one guy to one girl, and it's private property. No one can come in. It's a big old mansion. Right by the bars, all the bartenders are members of the frat. All the security guys, they'll let you in. You don't have to pay cover at the bar. Ooh, all you have to do is be a pledge for 6 months. All right, yeah, sure, I'll do it. You don't know anyone.
Yeah, I was honestly envious of the college scene when I was about that age, because I never went to like formal college of any kind. I did some community college, but we formed our own independent frat.
Oh yeah.
Of like our friends that went to school in the area, and then our hometown friends that went to college elsewhere. Whenever they came home, that was like the de facto frat. They had this old grandma house. Yeah. In like a shitty part. It was like this huge house. Yeah. That was like, it looked like it lived in by a grandma forever, and then they moved out, and then the family just rented it out. Yeah. And so we had these 2 bands living in there and practicing. And that was a crazy scene. So we kind of made our own frat. Yeah. Debauchery. Yeah, I remember
we were all pledges, and I remember, you're like paying money, and I remember we were like 6 months in, like, didn't know that we were about to get initiated, but we were at a point where we were like, yo, why don't we just make our own? We were like, we were going to make like a mockery of like frat. We were going to have, our frat was just going to be all like 20 Greek letters or whatever. We were going to get, okay, so they're starting to get you to spend less time, or they're trying to get you to spend less time with you had noticed that. You had noticed that.
They were doing a pretty good job of it. I remember one day before I was telling you I signed up for the healer training, and I haven't gone to that yet. but one of the things they did, I remember, was pretty comical. Is there was like a morning TV show in Seattle. It was like a local morning show on like one of the major network affiliates, and they never had anyone in the audience. Though it was like one of those kind of Good Morning America, but it was like Good Morning Seattle type little humble little show, and they would like let you, they'd give you like 10 seconds to advertise like whatever you were going to advertise if you showed up and had like 10 people in the audience or whatever. So I actually went with like 10 other young people. I think there was like one like undermaster with us, and we had like a little banner that said like come try Dawn Yoga or something like that.
Yeah.
And we sat in the audience at this like, big television station. And at some point, it may be out there in the archive somewhere, is me and like, 10 other young people holding up a banner, like, come try Dawn Yoga. All right. Whatever.
Okay.
And, yeah. But even at the time, I think I was like trying to hide behind people, like, I don't want to do this.
Oh, yeah. Were you guys wearing all white?
Yep, we were all wearing all white.
Oh, really?
And geese, yep. We were wearing our geese for sure. And I think like the girl I was seeing, we were like sort of talking to each other, but like, talking privately a lot and whatnot. She was going, so I was like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
And I'm going. And then fast forwarding to the healer training. By this point, I was having some reservations about like just everything that was going on, how pushy they were. Like I would take I'd say, oh, I won't be here like next week at all. I won't be at any classes next week. I'm going up to Canada for a bunch of friends, because at the same time I was starting to go to like what they now call conscious festivals, kind of along the lines of Burning Man, but these were like smaller, like regional festivals. And there was one up in Canada.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going up to this thing in Canada, so I won't be here for like 5 days or whatever. I'll see you next week. And then instead of, like a good person that actually cared about you, you'd be like, have a good time, stay safe.
Yeah. And
we'll see you get back. But they were kind of like, oh, that's not good.
Ooh,
that's not good.
Ooh, Philip.
Your friends, and they would be so like assumingly judgmental, like, oh, your friends, they don't understand. They're asleep in their head. And I'm like, no, they're really actually quite.
They're cool guys.
Conscious.
Yeah.
They're good people. They believe in like a better world for everyone. We're not just going up there to get fucked up, even though getting fucked up is going to be part of the
definitely
equation.
Part of the equation. Yeah. It's like did you ever do Tomorrow World or Tomorrowland? Anything like that?
What's that?
Oh, it was like a huge, not really like burnt. I think it shut down, but it had been, I think it still goes on in Belgium. It started in like 2000, but the whole thing is just like people from all over the world. It's an EDM festival, and it's just everyone's in like costumes, just taking a bunch of acid and mushrooms, and it's an excuse to say like, hey, we're all gonna go, try to, everyone's friends, everyone. I mean, granted, it came to Atlanta, and I went in 2014 for one of the days. It's a blast, man. You go, there's literally people from every corner of the globe. Everyone's really positive, but it's definitely fucked up. It was part of the equation. Like, yeah.
Sounds like a European kind of Burning Man thing.
Yeah.
There's so many things like that. Like I've seen videos of like people in Russia or people in Italy, and they're throwing like these like tiny little Burning Man style parties where it might be like 100 people.
Yeah.
And it looks like parties we had in Washington here, and it'd be like, wow, that's kind of cool that like people all over the world are like doing this like style of thing, and like it would look just like one of our parties, even like the terrain and environment, like somewhere we would throw a party, but you could be interchangeable. I could show up there and be right at home, except I wouldn't be able to communicate with anyone because I don't speak their language. But they're wearing the same kind of clothes and the same kind of hairstyles. And definitely an interesting movement that's been going on there. And I think of it as something like that went on the past 20 years or so, like Burning Man sort of has, but it definitely goes back way further, and probably goes back, 10,000 years.
Oh, absolutely.
People get.
Yeah, go out in the desert, take some hallucinogens, meditate, like.
Yeah, I think actually Alan Watts.
I fucking love Alan Watts, dude.
There's a cool quote from him that someone brought up recently, actually, that was like, it was like, for as long as there's been humans, they have gathered together in the mountains, in the forests, in the hills, and done something I like to call digging sound.
Oh yeah, you go out there and chanting, and he's like, it's like sonic play. You go out there and you play with sound waves. Yeah,
and like back in the day, there would be drums around the campfire, and like these days, it's like a sound system and a generator around a campfire.
Do you ever listen to like Terrence McKenna?
Oh sure,
yeah. Fuck yeah, man.
Terrence.
Yeah, I think you and I probably have a lot of similar interests. Yeah, I mean, in my early 20s, I was definitely right out of college. I'd been meditating for a while, but I definitely went on like a couple year stretch. It's more of like a solo thing, but I was same thing you're saying. I was definitely like looking for something, and I imagine I probably would have been susceptible. I think it was probably just chance. I think it was just chance that I just didn't, bump into anything like that. But yeah, man, I grew my hair really long. I was all about like tie dye and psychedelics and meditation and I was going balls deep in that. I mean, I still meditate every day. It's much more refined, and it's not, not trying to push it on everyone. Peace and love or else, it's No, so I get what you're saying when you're, you see stuff and you're like, oh, that looks interesting. Like, there's definitely, a certain mindset you have, and it's kind of fucked up that there are groups that prey on that.
That's one of the most disturbing things.
Because it's such like a pure thing, is like meditation and yoga. Like, it's what a good thing, who doesn't want to go into the woods and hang out with your best friends and you guys look at the clouds and be grateful for life. But the fact that there's like a fanged monster watching, and it's like that's our target audience. This is some evil motherfuckers.
Disturbing thing.
Yeah,
that's the most disturbing thing about it, as far as like predatory religions and predatory like yoga groups or just cults in general. Is people we're in this finite existence here as humans, and the fact that we're going to die someday is just so terrifying, and naturally, and it's just like built into us, self-preservation and so forth, where like someone says like we've got the answer, as where our society is kind of built around materialism, is like, don't think about that, buy some more stuff, and the more stuff you buy, like the more worth you have. And then so there's other people who are like, that's not the answer, but we've got the answer over here, and it's spirituality, and they give you like all the sugar at first, all the sweet stuff, and then it comes down to, you got to be part of our organization, and there's the guru over there, and he would like you to fuck him,
and you got to write a check.
Oh, okay. You got to write a check. And you got to turn over all your property. And so back into that, the cult experience, I was totally just, like up to my neck in it at this point. But I was having some reservations, and the headmaster guy was like, oh, you looked on the internet and found some bad stories. That's all bullshit. I was like, no, I didn't. What's on the internet? So I went and looked on the internet and was like, oh, there's like tons of people that were like, this is how they got me. They wanted more and more money. They were pushy about their retreats in Arizona, and there's all this Korean stuff going on. And then I was just like, oh God, what have we gotten ourselves into? And like at this point, I've got some really good friends and some really cool experiences. I've already signed a contract for a year, which basically said they could keep cashing these checks that I'd written them. I wrote them all the checks in advance, and they deposited them every month. And I'd I'd signed the contract in a way to where, like, if I canceled the checks, like, they could come after me. Like, they could probably send me to collections or whatever.
Fucking
and so
bastards.
I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, oh, man, I'm in here. And this is only, like, 3 or 4 months into it at this point. It was all very fast. And I'd already signed up and paid for, like, half of the healer training thing. And I actually had a good job at the time. So I had the money, and I didn't have any responsibilities, and I lived in a house with, like, 4 roommates. Uh-huh. So my overhead was really low, and I had expendable income. But I go to this healer training thing full on knowing that, like, okay, I don't want to be part of this anymore at all, but I'm gonna get my week-long trip out of it. Yeah. And do the experiences. And it was just tough because I wasn't, like, anywhere close to a true believer anymore. Mm-hmm. But I went through the training, and the whole point of it was, like, at that point they know they've got you in pretty deep if you're paying $5,000 for this to become a healer, and so forth. Collect my thoughts for a second.
No, you're fine.
But the whole week was designed not to teach you to be a dawn healer. They've already got you in that, and that's pretty much, like, not their goal. Their goal is for you to become a dawn master. Oh. And a dawn master means it just means yoga teacher, essentially. Like, they want you to be leading classes, and eventually you'll be like a headmaster, like the guy Ryan that we call Jiwan Jing Nim was what they called him. And that was, like, the headmaster was Jiwan Jing Nim. Like, oh wow, Jiwan Jing Nim.
Yeah, Jiwan Jing.
And and then, like, he had, like, maybe three or 4 masters under him that were just yoga teachers that basically did all of the leading of classes and cleaning the studio, like cleaning the bathrooms and so forth. And these people that I knew that were like that were generally from, like, the other side of the country, because if their family ever came in and saw what they were doing, they would be like, what the hell, you're doing this for how much money? Nothing.
You're coming home.
Essentially they would you see this as a theme. They would separate people from their support network so that they could bring them into, and you'll see that in cults in general, just anything they can do to separate people from their family and their support network, because those people are going to be the ones that talk sense into them and bring them back into their life. So I remember one chick was from Massachusetts, another girl was from Korea, and they also moved them around a lot because they didn't want people to make. They didn't want them too close to each other.
Alliance, yeah.
They wanted them only close to the organization,
the individual.
So, so the healer training, the whole goal of that on their end was to make you decide you wanted to be a dawn master. So the whole week was about, like, healing, whatever. We do it like this. We rub on the heart chakra, send the energy, and so forth, and do the tap. A lot of tapping is involved, and yelling confirmations and so forth. But they would talk a lot about the vision, and, like, they'd have it up on a board, like 100 million healers. We're getting there. And how do we get healers? We need dawn masters. We need masters to teach the classes to get people to be healers. And so essentially, I think they probably never said it straightforward, but they probably wanted at least, like, 10 million healers, or 10 million masters, so they could get this 100 million healers mark.
What's the level above the Dawn Masters?
What's that?
Because to create Dawn Masters, you got to have another who teaches the Dawn Masters.
Exactly. I think they had enough of those, the Jiwanjing Nims of the organization. But I'm sure if I wanted to be one of those, they've been like, awesome, dude, let's get you on fast track.
Bastards.
But at the time, I was reading this book, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
Yeah.
Which is like a modern companion to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Yeah, and it was written by this guy, one of the Rinpoches in Tibetan lineage, and I found that like a really powerful book, and it talked a lot about like transitioning from life into the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I wanted to be like a hospice like type person that could be like have like a spiritual like perspective on helping people transition from life into death.
Like Richard Alpert, Ram Dass. You ever listen to him? Yeah, that's kind of what his whole thing was. Yeah,
I read that book, the Peak Now book.
Yeah. He actually died in December. He was like 90.
Yeah, not long.
But that was his whole thing. That's what I always liked about him, was there was no gimmick, there was no pay me this. It was just, people are like, what do you do? And he's like, he literally just spent all of his time at hospices. And it wasn't, he's like, not a doctor. He's like, he would just sit there and just be like, okay, like, you're gonna die, like, let's talk about it. Yeah. And he would just, that
is truly like God's work.
That is angelic. That is, he would just literally, he'd be like, he'd sit there in bed with like people that had AIDS and would just be like, let's knit together. Let's, or he'd be like, let's listen to, like, one lady was like, I can't go out. It's like I'm dying in this sterile hospital room, and it's just like all I hear are like beeps and like the air conditioner. And he was like, well, let's like make music out of that. And they would like listen to the beeps in the air conditioner and like, kind of like tap their fingers and make like little beats and stuff. And he's like, next thing you know, she's smiling, and and like, a couple hours later she's dead. But like, that's as good as you can get. I mean, that dude was a Harvard professor. That dude was a genius. What?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I never actually got into doing that kind of work, like hospice work or anything.
Yeah.
But those people have my immediate respect.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, those are living angels.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. Sure. It is.
So I go to the week-long training, and then I come home, and I've got this vision, like they really the master guy really like put it in me, like you got to come back with your vision. When you come back, I want you to have your life vision like nailed down, because there's not a whole lot of time. The world is dying.
Oh,
like,
fuck.
Okay, sure. I could kind of vibe with that, and like, even though I was already knew I didn't want to be part of this organization for like no more than the year that I had signed up for.
Yeah.
I definitely thought, like, this guy, even though I think he's a little bit too pushy and a little bit too much of a true believer in this thing, I think I felt like a bit of obligation to him, because he kind of took me under his wing and so forth. But I come back and he's like, welcome back. You look different. Like, good job. You look your energy is like clear, almost like a Scientology thing.
Oh yeah, getting clear. Oh geez.
Go clear. And he was like, so what is your vision? And he's expecting me to say, like, I followed the program and like received the programming that they had in place, and that I want to be a Dawn Master. And I said, I want to help people that are dying. I want to work with dying people. And he was like, what? No, Dobu Nim, no. Why you want to work with dying people? He was so like,
whoa, what the fuck?
Like, this was not part of the plan.
What an asshole.
And looking back is like the most hilarious thing. It's
yeah.
Like, he was like, okay, you received the message, you received the programming. It looks like you're totally following along with their programming, and then like, what? That's not part of the plan.
No, Philip, no. What are you doing?
Yeah, that was hilarious. And then there was just further like friction, to where like I was like, no, I'm going to live my life like this. Mm-hmm. This is my life. You have no right whatsoever to tell me how to even like to be pushy at me at all. And then so they kind of like back off me a little bit, and I lasted basically a couple more months, and then I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And then I just ghosted on him.
Fuck yeah.
One day, I was just like, and later I heard some advice later in life that was like, if you're in a manipulative relationship with someone, be it romantic or friendship or otherwise, you can just ghost them, and
Yeah.
you don't owe them any
You don't owe them any
explanation.
I'm with that. I'm with you on that 1,000%, man. You don't need to have an out. You don't need a, hey, this is why I stopped. You can just block them on Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, Snapchat, YouTube, whatever. Block them on everything, and just deuces. Go do you. Because the only way to win for yourself, the only way to, the best thing is, it's not that there can be a positive or negative interaction. There can't be any interaction, because that person is a manipulator. The positive and negatives doesn't mean anything to them. A line of communication, that's all they need to get in your head. You gotta
give them a chance to manipulate you if you get into a conversation with them.
Yeah, you just gotta ghost.
Yeah, so I ghosted on him.
Just ghosted him.
And before I left, some of my friends that I was close with, and we'd all sort of joined around the same time. And part of the reason I'm disguising myself is I don't want to insult some of these people I'm still friends with.
Yeah, sure.
Eventually they left.
Yeah.
And if they see this, they would know that I was talking about them, because they would recognize me. They would recognize their own story. But I'm trying to protect their identity and probably their embarrassment a little bit too.
Yeah.
But there was one girl in particular, was that girl I was seeing. I would see her, and she got way deep into it, to where she quit going to college.
Oh, fuck.
She was from a different state, and she was going to the University of Washington, and her parents were paying for that, and she had a pretty nice car that her parents had bought her. And I saw now, the Dawn Master people were driving around in her car.
Oh, fuck.
She was in the back. She was in the back seat.
Oh, God.
Or she wasn't even there, and they're just driving around her car.
Just in her whip.
And then when I talked to her, she was way deep in it mentally, and she was even speaking in a Korean accent.
Oh, fuck.
This is how deep it was going. I'd see her and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" She'd be like, "Good. You come to Center today? You come to Center?" And
be like,
I don't think so. I think I might be in Wednesday. I usually go in on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and oh, you must come to Center. It was really the creepiest thing.
That's
eerie, that
man.
Pushed me out the door faster.
Yeah.
And then shortly after I got out of the organization and ghosted on them, they took a bunch of those people, including her and another close friend of mine that I'm still friends with, and everyone I know is out of it now. The few people I still know from that are long gone, and they sent them to Korea, just like they took people from Korea and sent them over here, including my headmaster guy Ryan Jiwon Jing Nim. At one point, he told me that he hadn't seen his family in Korea for 5 years. His mom and dad had not talked to them in 5 years. And he explained, yes, I cried, I had many tears, and I had to leave them behind, and this is what we have to do for vision. And I was kind of damn, dude, that's hardcore, but I'm not ever doing that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. They got to transplant them and cut them off from the environments they grew up in. Got to get all voices of reason. You got to get them away. So why not just do the classic Korea to America swap?
Yep, it was the classic thing. They took a group of Koreans and probably sent them over here, and they took a group of young people and sent them to Korea.
Yeah.
And then they were on a 3-year program, and they had some name for the program too, almost like an exchange thing. But they sent them all over there, and eventually I read about this. What happened was they sent a whole group of Americans over there, and they were basically right at the headquarters of the whole thing, with the guru Ilchi Lee thing and everything. And of course he was manipulating and raping girls.
God damn it.
Yeah, always these motherfuckers.
At the core, you always find it's someone's fucking everyone. Like literally, there's like someone's always
the cults.
It always ends up with some dude has to have his dick inside everybody, and it's like the lengths that some dudes will go to get laid. It's like, dude, just if you took half this energy of making this global cult and just hit the gym, dieted, and went out to a bar with a nice shirt on, you could probably get laid. But it's like you don't need to do this whole thing.
It's not enough to get it up. They have to manipulate people.
That's true.
Like turning their whole mind and body and life and bank account and everything over. And so I actually read about this in the Rolling Stone magazine. I think it was 2010.
Okay.
And they put out this big cover story expose, which is not really in Rolling Stone's like wheelhouse, but maybe for whatever reason, because they targeted young people or whatever, it was relevant. And the cover story was called The Yoga Cult, like inside like this yoga cult kind of thing. And I read about how like a lot of the same experiences I'd had. And then they talked about how there was a kind of the centerpiece of the article was that there was a class action lawsuit against the guru guy and the organization as a whole, accusing of like mind manipulation, mind control, and coercion, and just taking advantage of people for money and so forth. And part of the suit was just like the money thing, and there was also the rape. Was like rape allegations were included in there. And I looked at, they had some of like the paperwork or something from the lawsuit, and I recognized it was like maybe a dozen names or so, and I recognized like several of the people from the retreats I was at. And not the young people retreat and the healer training. I was like, I remember that guy. I remember that girl. I definitely know that guy because he's my friend. And then I know that was one of the girls that said that the guru raped her was my friend's girlfriend.
Oh fuck.
And it's one of the things that's really kind of vague, is because they weren't like tied up and assaulted. They were manipulated to a point where they would like the guru would like to see you in his bedroom, like his private quarters now, and it's just like, oh, you were very lucky, you were very special if you want us to see you there. And eventually, long story short, they manipulate them into like turning over their body to him, and then they just like they freeze up and they're like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to love this or whatever, and then I'm supposed to be happy.
It's part of the vision. It's for the greater good.
And like it's just, that is sorted for sure. But I read about that and I was like, wow. If I had just been a little bit more into it, I would have ended up in Korea with all these people, like, for sure. And then so I left the organization, and that was pretty much the end of that. But there was little loose ends eventually. Sometimes I would see, there was one girl I knew that was a little bit older than me. She was like in her early 30s, and she had totally stressed herself out. She had like a very lucrative advertising exec sort of job. And it was stressing her out to the max, to where she was having all sorts of inflammation and stuff coming up, like extreme, like I think she had shingles and like all this other stuff. And she was one of the people that actually rode with me in the shuttle bus that I made friends with from Phoenix to Sedona the first time I went out there. And she'd explained, like, when I got to know her, that she'd quit her job that paid her well into the six figures, and she had turned over basically everything. She definitely needed a new career. This was not working for her health wise, but she'd found the Dawn Yoga thing and turned everything over to them, and had and by the time the healer training came around, I'm pretty sure she was there too, if I recall correctly. But she was a Seattle person too. And she didn't want to be part of it anymore, but she was in too deep. She had given them like basically like $75,000, I think, total.
Fuck.
And had quit her job to become like a dawn master and so forth. And she was I remember she was starting to spin out of control a little bit, but she had nowhere else to go. And so I left the organization. I didn't see her or a lot of those other people for a while, but then I was at a house with roommates, living with a bunch of roommates, and we'd throw parties, some pretty big epic parties on occasion. And our house would be like full of people like I didn't even know, and there's one of these parties, I go into a room and I see that girl and she is drunk. She is so drunk. And you can just see it in her. She's like, just like wobbling and whatnot. And then I saw her and I was like, hey, like, I know you. Like, how's it going? And she took one look at me, and I got the impression later on that she probably left the organization and she just wanted to go out and get fucking drunk and forget all that. Yeah. And then at the height of her drunkenness, there's someone from the organization that's also like, hey, how's it going? And I obviously wasn't involved anymore either. She probably saw that I was absent. Yeah. And but she did not want to be reminded of it at all. Sure, she took one look at me and like turned on her heel and just walked out the door.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
And I never saw her again, but I thought that was just hilarious.
It is, yeah. She probably didn't want any reminders. Just like, nah, fuck this. I'm going out and getting. Yeah. Jesus.
And so that's pretty much sums up my story with that. And I've been interested in cults and like cult stories and like things that you wouldn't consider a cult. Yeah. But they pretty much are if you break it down, like certain like pyramid schemes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like that. A lot of times.
Absolutely.
Basically a cult setup. And sometimes they're even companies. I worked for this company called Zones.com for a bit when I was way younger. And that was basically like a cult too. And it was cold calling. They trained us to cold call companies and like try to sell them like leases on office equipment, essentially. But it was very much a cult structure. There was like a CEO. I remember one time it was here in Renton, Washington, and there was a CEO, and they had like a meeting where the CEO was going to talk to everyone, and we were trainees. I was only in there for a couple months, for like 2 months, so I never actually got onto like the sales floor essentially, and never started cold calling people. I was like, I can't do this. Yeah. And honestly, I was just in it for the money through training. Yeah. I knew I did not want to be a salesperson, but at the time it was like $2,200 a month just for the training. Yeah. This is in like, early 2000s. Yeah. And that was like more money than I ever made. Yeah. I was like, I'll do that for a couple months and like save up some money while I figure out what I'm going to do next. Yeah. But I remember we were in this elevator and there was like a secretary type of lady, and she was like, have you ever heard the president speak? No.
Get excited. Like, 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was that type of thing.
Do your hair. Like, do your hair.
When he speaks, like.
Is his name Dr. Ilchili or whatever?
It was not Dr. Ilchili. It wasn't. It was just some guy that was like.
But yeah, business. Same structure though. It's getting you in like a small room beforehand and being like, get ready.
Yeah, and so and kind of going back to the original post I made on Reddit that caught your attention was I said that I had accidentally joined a cult. Yeah. One, and that was the Dawn Yoga, and I had close encounters with a few others. And so I was traveling in Australia, and I was traveling using the.
You were in Australia.
I was in Australia and I was traveling on the WOOF network, which is WWOOF. And it used to stand for something else. I think it was like Willing Workers on Organic Farms.
Uh-huh.
And I think they've rebranded it as something else that doesn't sound so weird, like willing workers. Like, what's that supposed to mean? It's like, okay, we're not forced labor. We're willing labor. Yeah, but it's still going strong. I think it started in the 70s or something. It's like actually this really brilliant way of traveling and I think their mission was like basically to spread like peace throughout the world by helping people travel. Because if you travel, your perception of the world broadens and becomes much more understanding, and you're less likely to go to war, like with Thailand or something, if you've been to Thailand. And so I was using the WOOF network, and how that worked is it was basically an exchange. You would work, and the host would, as a guest, you would work, and the host would provide you with room and board. There was no money exchanged. It was just they'd give you like a bed to sleep in, and they would give you 3 meals a day. And the rough guidelines from the organization was like, it was sort of communist literature based. So it was like a 4-day work week with like 6 hours a day. It was like, I think it was like the main goal that like, I never read any communist literature, but I think that's like in some of that like Marxist literature is the goal is 4-day work weeks with like 6-hour days, so that you actually have time to spend with your family and whatnot, but still be productive. So that was like kind of
we got an American flag, boy. We ain't communists here.
Oh, yeah. We ain't no communists.
We ain't no communists here, boy. We believe. Yeah. Okay.
No communists here. Yeah. Except for the fire department, that's okay.
Yeah, except for the fire department, police department, emergency room, roads. Aside from that, yeah.
I think a hybrid system would probably be the best, and it's sort of like what we already have. Just like a hybrid system.
Whenever that comes, let's not go down this road. But whenever that comes up, I'm always like, I think I'm probably like part of a 0.1% of people that's like, I'm kind of just okay with how it is now. Like all things considered, I'm like, there's always room for improvement, but I'm like, it's pretty dope now. Like, there's always bad parts, but okay, but yeah. So you're in Australia, WOOF network. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and so I'm in Australia. I'm in the WOOF network, and the first place I end up at as a guest worker is this like acreage, and it's part of it's basically a retreat center for an organization that's eerily similar to Dawn Yoga. It's so close. It's much smaller. I mean, and they have a lot less money, but they're definitely well on their way to becoming a Dawn Yoga type of thing. Their guru guy must have studied Dawn Yoga and like said, this is what we have to do. But this instead of Korea, this time it was an Indian guru, and he was a Swami, and the Swamis are the orange robe guys. And as far as I know, those guys are all charlatans, as far as I'm concerned. But maybe there's some good ones out there. But pretty much, if I hear Swami,
orange robe,
I'm gonna keep my eye on you.
Welcome to my podcast cult, motherfucker.
I think we found a new guru. Ladies and gentlemen.
Have you ever heard Tommy talk? It's just, it is. You need to be guest on Tommy's podcast. Welcome. We'll have different tiers.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be one of.
I've got your picture.
Yeah. Picture on my wall.
It's gotta be the highest.
Yeah.
It's gotta be the highest.
Yeah. Oh shit! I never thought about that. Yeah, you gotta be the. Jesus.
And then.
So
I end up out there, and I learn a little bit about the organization. They also have little retail locations in multiple countries. They kind of focused on Australia, New Zealand, and like Eastern Europe. That was like their main strongholds. They had like a lot of people there were from I think Croatia, if I remember correctly. There's some Eastern European people. There was Austria. They had like a main center in Austria, in Vienna, and but they were based out of. The guy was from India, so. And the first like week or so I was there, we were just preparing the land for the guru Swamiji, as they call him, to show up. And they were having a retreat, so there was like another 100 people showing up, and it was just a trip to see the people that lived there on the land all the time were total devotees, and they couldn't wait for Swamiji. They were working hard. We were toiling. We were mowing grass. We were building outdoor toilets. It was pretty rustic. Like there was very little structure there. The only like permanent structure was like the kitchen. Mm-hmm. It was like it had a foundation and everything, and then they built like a permanent sort of like covered area for Swamiji's camp. Mm-hmm. And that was like, and other than like the showers and the toilets, that was like the only structures on the land. Everyone else was like living in like tents, or like there was like a couple like motorhome, like small trailer type things. And most of the people there were older. Like the people that lived there were like, I'd say the average age was like mid 40s. I think there were some people in their 60s and some people younger, but they were totally devoted to Swamiji. Mm-hmm. There was one guy that was like, he was becoming a monk, basically. Mm-hmm. He was in transition of like leaving his regular life and becoming just a full-on like celibate monk. Mm-hmm. And that guy was probably like in his like late 50s or early 60s. And then Swamiji showed up, and they greeted him, like his cars pulled up, and they greeted him with like flowers. They like held flowers and like stood along the drive where he would drive, and they were like crying. They were like weeping, like, Swamiji, he's here. And it was a fucking trip for sure. And then I helped. My job once he got there is I had some experience like with videography and being a videographer. Okay. And they would do these daily like webcasts where he would give like a sermon, and they set up 3 cameras. They had some very expensive equipment to basically, we're in the middle of nowhere, like jungle, rural Australia on their east coast over there. But like a little ways outside of the nearest big town was Newcastle, Australia, for people that are familiar with that area. And the little town, the little like farming town, is called Dungog. And so they show up out there, and there's no cell phone reception or anything on the land, and they were able to broadcast live like to the internet, and it was like on part of their website they called Swami TV or Swamiji TV, and every night they would broadcast like his sermon. And so it was my job to run one of the cameras, and it was like a nice setup too. It was like it had the little like panning feature was like on, so I didn't have to pan on the camera. It was like on the handle. Yeah, like that was some next level. So
no expenses spared for the Swamiji production.
I estimated it was like probably $100,000 worth of just video equipment.
Everything else is made out of mud and twigs, but Swamiji's video, it's got to be an 8K raw, 60 FPS.
So luckily for me, I was working hard before he got up there, like landscaping and shoveling and doing all this stuff, and like clearing out weeds and clearing out brush. And then once he got there, I was just 2 hours a day. I would run a camera, and then that was done. Yeah. So I like that trade-off. And it was like crazy hot out there. It was like well over 100 degrees for part of the time. Oh, we were out there, and then it was a trip to watch the people. Like Swamiji, we would talk, and these people that I'd met, they were also really sweet, like smart, strong, intelligent people. And then Swamiji would speak, and all that would go out the window, and they would like close their eyes and listen to him speak, eyes closed. And there was one youngish couple that were probably, I think the female was probably around 30 and the dude was around 40, and they announced that they had like turned over their like life savings, their real estate and everything over to the organization. And I think they said like they owned like 3 pieces of land, because the guy was like a contractor, like a builder. And so they owned like their home and like 2 rental properties and like some acreage or something, if I recall correctly. And they turned it all over to Swamiji, just like have this. and they quit what they were doing to run a retail location. And they announced like that they were doing that, and everyone like clapped and like, oh yay, good job. Like, wow, you really made a sacrifice. And I was like, oh my God, you guys, like I've seen this before, and it does not end good. And so I stayed there for 3 weeks, and it was a trip. And then when I got out of there, I got back to a computer. I started doing some digging.
Oh God.
And there was people accusing Swamiji of raping them too.
God damn it, Swamiji. You motherfucker.
Some of the Eastern European girls.
God damn it. It goes the same way, doesn't it? It just it leads to eventually the awkward question comes up of we need some money, and then it also comes into like his dick's out. Like
yeah, it was. I would always kind of wonder how it would lead to that. But one of the testimonies from this Swamiji thing was, she said that it was like they would, when she was with Swamiji, like at this private sort of residence type thing. I think it was, if I recall, it was it was either in Eastern Europe somewhere, or it was at their one of their main centers, and their main Western center was in Vienna. I think it might have been at the Vienna thing. But she said basically they would, like, it felt like this big privilege. Everyone would like act like you were so special because you got to be around Swamiji in his like private area. You go in there, and there was a bunch of other women that he had convinced to do this also, and they would like massage him with oil and like massage his feet and whatnot. And then at some point he would tell like everyone else to leave except you. And then he would like, they're already like feel like they're in the presence of some sort of god celebrity, and they're sort of uneasy about it, but everything is just like pushing them in this direction. Like they're just like in this like river rapids.
Yeah, it's just it's just going and going, and you can't jump off. It's churning, and like you'd say, like people like us would say to them, like, why didn't you just walk out the door? Mm-hmm.
You know, but for some certain people in their mindset, they just are not able to do that. And a lot of times they're in like a strange place where like they don't even have anywhere to go. They're in a different country.
Mm-hmm.
They don't speak the language. They're there with this guy. They don't know like where to go, who to talk to, or anything. This is like where they thought they felt safe, and this is their community, and they wouldn't want to lose their community and their friends and so forth. And this one account quoted Swamiji as like basically after grooming her very slowly and with the oils and massages, and a lot of it is tests. You know, they're testing how far can I push this person, and then according to the account, he said to her like, "You give your heart to Swamiji?" And she's like, "Yeah." And you give your mind to Swamiji? Like, yeah. And this is in like mind control, which cults operate on. This is called putting someone in a yes set.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I was taught this in sales training once upon a time too. It's another form of mind control, sales training. But you get someone saying yes, you ask them questions that the answer is like obviously yes to, and then they just get into this rhythm of nodding their head and saying yes, and then you can just throw out like, and you give your body to Swamiji. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't even deep down or just below the surface, you don't agree with that, but you just said yes to it. So, now I feel like I have to, whatever. And before you know it, you got raped by Swamiji. And then they just try to shut it down and forget about it for a while. And you'll see this, like there's a bunch of documentaries on cults, and there's some really great ones on Netflix. They'll keep you riveted. But a lot of that, it's the same thing. Like before they knew it happened, they were raped, and they did not want to. There was like the same thing with like the Bikram yoga guy, and some other ones on there. It was Holy Hell. There's like a good one, really good cult documentary. And basically, they didn't want to lose. There's many facets. They don't want to be a victim now. They don't want to lose their community. They don't want to upset, like this ideal.
They don't want to make the god look bad. You don't want to make Swamiji look bad, because he's everyone's god.
Yeah. And you see all these other people that, even if you now hate Swamiji and you want to murder Swamiji, you see all these other people, you feel like you'll ruin their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like in your community, and we as humans are a tribal species. It's much more important than we give it credit for, the whole community aspect.
Yeah.
And so just moving on to further along in that trip to Australia, I ended up at another acreage. It was pretty common in the woofing network. You'd end up at an acreage somewhere because they had a bunch of, an acre they needed cleared out. Or
you're just a cult magnet, man.
I know, man. What the hell? If you're a spiritual seeker, there's dozens and dozens of cults just waiting there at their net.
Just waiting.
They'll write yoga.
Yeah,
they'll take that net and they'll write yoga, tai chi on it.
They're the troll under the bridge. Just
they've got their bait, man.
Fuck.
And these people were not predatory whatsoever. This land outside of Byron Bay, kind of like maybe 10, 12 miles from Byron Bay, Australia, which is also another hot spot for like young travelers in Australia. Is Byron. Fucking Swamiji, Il Chile, these motherfuckers, man.
They gotta go, dude. They gotta.
So, to preface this part of my story is there's a great documentary on Netflix called Wild Wild Country.
Okay.
I think that's called, right? I think I'm getting there right, but it's about the cult in Oregon and Osho.
Oh yeah,
Osho.
I think Joe Rogan talked about that guy.
Who talked about that?
I think Joe Rogan talked about that documentary. I haven't watched it, but I think I remember hearing him and Duncan Trussell talking about it.
Yeah, sure. It came out like a year and a half or 2 years ago, and like everyone was talking about it, like when it first came out. And I had seen some documentaries on them just from my research in cults, and there was already some good documentaries on YouTube about they were very infamous because they like took over a town in Oregon.
And they had the police. 80s. They had their own police force. They had,
they were. It was creepy, and culminating with they had something like 80 or 90 Rolls Royces that their guru Osho, that motherfucker Osho can suck it, and he would drive around in one of his Rolls Royces, flanked by guys with Uzis or like AKs, and that these images were just so striking. Like, okay, here's this weird peace cult, yoga cult type thing, and everyone's wearing like sort of East Indian looking clothing, and then they have like a long bearded Eastern guru, and he's in a Rolls Royce flanked by Uzi laden guards. It was just like, what an image is this? And then that got me roped into their documentary, and then culminating with they were trying to take over the town base or the county, and they had like so many people. They were definitely like on pace to do that, but there was still like this local town that was challenging them for the supremacy in the area. So they tried to poison the food supply of this town with salmonella.
What the fuck?
They went to a very popular like salad bar that was like really popular for the town on weekends, and they had like a science lab and everything on their compound, and they cultivated salmonella by bacteria, and then went to the salad bar and like sprayed it on the food. They tried it once before, just by spraying like produce or something, and it didn't take because it has to have like a warm, wet environment in which to survive. Otherwise it'll die off like within a few minutes or whatever. But so they found that the salad bar was perfect because it was like kept warm, it was kept wet, and so that was their part of the crazy story of that whole thing. And I definitely recommend everyone that's interested in this topic watch that documentary, Wild Wild Country.
Fuck.
And so I'd already seen that, and I knew about that, and I also had a lot of friends that were into Osho. They were not about to join his cult, but like they would read his books and they would post his quotes online with a picture of him, like, I am Osho, I'm so wise.
Dude,
it's always
I recognize the name. I recognize the name because I think at some point he was like the background on my computer. I think he had like a quote because he had good quote, but God, he was definitely. It's the wolf in the sheep's clothing. It's the wolf in the sheep's clothing.
His power, absolutely, and that was a lot of times these guys are successful because they're good writers. You know, they have like a good feel for like poetic things, or they have charisma. And I think Osho's had a lot of his charisma came across in his writing and his quotes, which a lot of times it's really rudimentary philosophies, but it's like stated in such a way that kind of like hits you with like a poetic sort of flair. And so I end up at this acreage out in Australia, and the main people that there's a few different people, there's probably like a dozen people that live on like I don't know how much acreage it was, like 10 acres or something. And it seems like the main people that were there forever, like the main 4 or 5 people were kind of older, like in their 60s or so, and like kind of like retiree age. And the main guy that ran the place was like this old Italian guy. He was a fucking character, man. He was always kind of pervy. He was like talking about how he had better sex now than when he was 21 years old because of like this yoga work or energy that he was doing. And like his girlfriend, who was like kind of like the main administrator of the place, like I contacted them and like was channeled directly to her basically to do the work out there. And she was like in her late 30s or something. This guy was like in his early 70s, so he was doing all right there. But I think he had like they might have been sort of poly or something too. Like he had other girlfriends or something. But they seemed to like, just do what he says. He's the boss. And I was like kind of like, all right, like, but I'm gonna stand my ground too. I'm not gonna get pushed around. But he was a bit of a slave driver, and I think he was just trying to wring as much free labor out of us woofers as he could.
Sure.
But he wasn't was not a predator or anything, but like at certain, I think in the mornings they would lead like a yoga meditation session like in the main house. And so they had a nice yoga room, and I go in there and they've got like a little shrine in Osho's picture. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on here?
Oh, fuck.
They've got Osho up there. And then I talked to one of the nice old ladies that lived there, and I was like, so how did all you end up out here? And she was like, well, we were all part of the, I forget what they called themselves, the Maharishis, or they had some name for it, but I was like, you guys, it just came up that they were part of the Osho organization in Oregon, and they all met each other there. And so like all the 4 or 5 old people that were like the long-term residents on this acreage, they were all together at that scene in Oregon. And I was like, oh my God. And like the big documentary had not come out yet, but it was still pretty well known that like, especially in the Northwest around here, like people know that story. So I was like, oh my God, you guys were there? And she was like, we were there. And so that was a crazy scene. And she was like, it was definitely a crazy scene. And if I'd have spent more time there, I might have pried a little bit deeper. Like, why do you guys still have a picture of Osho here? And I think a lot of the followers attributed the dissolution of the organization to like the upper leadership, the people just below Osho.
But not Osho.
And not Osho. Osho was all good and probably a victim of just, I don't know, evil forces that tore the thing apart. But that's just a good example of like how strong like that whole mindset could be. Is this was 30 years after the Oregon scene, and they're now in a completely different part of the world. And I think there were some Australians and some English, and then but the main guy that owned the land was that Italian guy. But they were all together with Osho back in the day, and here they are 30 years later in Australia. And the one other cult I wanted to mention was a lot of my friends around here in the Seattle area got roped into, and it's called the Rocky Mountain Mystery School. And it's a full-on...
Sounds like a fucking... it sounds like a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah, right. Their whole thing is like, when I first heard about them, I was very... it was back in the day, like around the dawn yoga time. And a friend of mine was like, it's an ethereal college that only manifests on the physical plane every 10,000 years. I was like, wow, that sounds trippy. And at the time I was like open to something like that.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't about to sign up and sign my life away, but I was like, whoa, like I want to hear what these people have to say. That's a trip.
Yeah.
And so they had they had some very, very expensive, like weekend intensive classes, but luckily I never got into it because they had like a thing where it's like the introductory classes, like they called it the adept class, like, and I think it was like back then it was like $300 something for like a weekend, and this wasn't like you were going camping on some land. This was just like at someone's house, and like maybe they provide like they potluck the food or something, but it sounded pretty expensive. But at the time, like all this yoga stuff sounded so expensive. It was just like, well, it's expensive. I guess everything's expensive now. And luckily, my schedule just never lined up with theirs. So by the time like our schedules would have aligned, I just wasn't interested anymore because I'd already gone through the dawn yoga ringer and so forth. But I definitely have a lot of friends that to this day are involved with the Rocky Mountain Mystery School, and they have their guru guys. This guy named Goodnison. And he's from Iceland.
Goodnison.
You can look him up. He's a fucking creep. You can just tell if you watch any kind of interview. Yeah, it's basically like John Johnson. That's what I've heard. Like for names.
It just sounds like
Iceland.
It just sounds like some like 1984 or like Brave New World, just like euphemistic. Like I'm Goodnison, you know, like I'm happy. Like
totally. Yeah, it's so true, but it's actually a really common name in Iceland.
Okay, yeah. It sounds
Gudni.
Sure.
It's like
like
John.
Yeah, some Nordic shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a really common name as far as I know, but if you just do any kind of research on Rocky Mountain Mystery School and Goodnison, you'll find this guy and his creepy ass interviews. And it's crazy that I have people that I love and respect in other areas of life, but they've really kind of turned their life over
to the Rocky Mountain Mystery School.
And there was actually one good friend I had was really involved with them, and he was almost like a right-hand man to Goodney for a while. I'm not sure if he still is or not, but they had a retreat center out in Utah, of course. It's always got to be out in the middle of nowhere where the energy is pure or whatever. And he said that they had to stop for something. They pulled over and he opened the trunk and the guy had like an AK and like a bazooka.
A bazooka?
Yeah, he had this like a bazooka, like a rocket launcher. And I don't know, I wasn't there. I can't say if this was like an accurate description of the weaponry. But I was like, why does he have a bazooka in his SUV? And he's supposed to be the founder and leader of this ethereal college for mysteries and unlocking the peace of humanity and so forth. And he was like, because he's a ninja. I was like, that's not a good enough answer. Like, got to tell me.
That's not a good.
So I've never been able to find any further proof of this, but essentially, this guy also ran. But my friend who is a true believer told me that he ran a company that was like a mercenary company. That was like, Blackwater, like that stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that mercenary company that got in some deep water.
Yeah.
For their
some Blackwater got in some deep water.
Yeah. They got in some deep the Blackwater for their operations in the Middle East.
Yeah, where they fucked up that car full of women. Yeah.
And this guy basically ran a mercenary company, and
what the
has access. He had access to millions of dollars. So my friend is riding around with him in like some sort of like Lexus or BMW SUV, and he's like, "Oh wait, I got to get something out of the back," and they go to the back of the car, and he's got a bazooka and like an AK or some other kind of like M16, just like some hardcore weaponry in his trunk. And my friend, even at the time, he wasn't like a close friend, but definitely friends. Like I went to his wedding and stuff like that. And but he just didn't see any problem with this, because like this is just what this guy does. And I wasn't able. I wish maybe I could, but it's kind of a hard conversation to jump into. But like, okay, so back to your guy and his guns in the trunk. I never got much out of it other than this. He ran a mercenary company, and he ran the Rocky Mountain Mystery School. And if you just find some interviews with that guy, he's creepy. What else can I say? He's creepy. And there's some people, I read some testimonies online about like some of the ongoings in their cult, and like how he would tell people that they needed to like start cutting off people that were outside of the cult because they wouldn't understand, and their energies would interfere with what they were trying to do. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that.
It's pretty much
an hour and 5 minutes later.
Yeah, that's pretty much all.
My Forrest Gump style.
No, it was brilliant.
Going back to my original post on our cults there on Reddit, and that pretty much sums up my firsthand experience with cults. And
that was, I can say without a doubt that this was the funniest podcast I've belted out laughing in a couple, not at you, like, with you, but like this is definitely you had me laugh. You've got a good presentation of you've got a good deadpan humor, man. You've
thank you.
You've definitely got a, not that I'm some fucking comedy specialist, a compliment from me might not mean shit, but dude, you can tell it in a funny way, man. You should
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You could definitely you could definitely
I have to let you go soon.
Oh, dude, hey, no, I got you, dude. I know you
sure
said
you've got.
No, you said you work nights, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that's not till later tonight, but I got to get back to my family responsibilities and whatnot. But before we go, I'd like to just say thanks and ask you, like, what made you start your podcast? Like, what if you have goals for your podcast?
Sure. Kind of a crash course story. I was pre-med in college at the University of Georgia. I graduated in 2013. I almost failed out my freshman year when I was in that frat, and then over the next 3 years just kind of buckled down and got straight A's nonstop for 6 semesters. Published research, shadowed doctors, scored in the 95th.6 percentile on the MCAT. Got into medical school in Miami. Really decided that I wasn't happy when I graduated. I mean, it was just really pretty miserable. Didn't have a life outside of it. It was like a one-man cult, kind of. I had cut myself off from everyone. I was just really wasn't sure this is what I wanted to do. Also had an experience with psychedelics for the first time right when I graduated, and I was like, okay, now I'm really sure this isn't what I want to do. Couple months after that, supposed to start medical school fall 2014, so this was spring 2014. Decided it's not what I wanted to do. My oldest sibling committed suicide in April 2014, and so that threw me for a loop. So now it was like existential crisis of losing a sibling, personal crisis of like I've been training to be a doctor and now I don't want to do it, and then like pent up crisis in that like I hadn't partied in like 4 years. Went to the #1 party school in the nation, but like had spent it in the library. So for 4 years, 2014 is probably like 2 years, for like 2 straight years, all of those things kind of just came together in just a depressive, anxiety-ridden, weight gain, drug-fueled, didn't know what I wanted, was, like I said, was searching for something, was meditating, was, you know, became a very miserable person, and I moved home because my mental health just plummeted, and taught myself graphic design over a couple of years, and really this entire time I've been, I remember my uncle told me, he was like, if you're smart enough to be a doctor, you're smart enough to make money doing something you love. And I was like, okay, so for this entire time since I moved home, I wanted to find a way to make money and be my own boss. You know, not be a billionaire. Just like I had the money lined up. I was going to be a doctor. Like I had that lifestyle in my hand. 15,000 people applied to the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. 15,000 applied, 100 got in. I was one of them. Like I could have been a doctor, wearing all white, just like my little colt, and making money. And I decided that's not what I wanted. And always knew I could talk to people. I mean, for anyone listening to this, you and I have, you know, aside from exchanging a couple of messages, we've never fucking talked. And everyone I've ever had, everyone I've had on this podcast, I don't talk to beforehand. I fucking just hit record and hey, let's go. So I can talk to people, and you know, I still do graphic design, and that's not out of the question. But I was like, man, I love talking to people. I just fucking love talking to people, and was just looking at it, and I was like, I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan. I'm not trying to get, I'm not trying to be worth more money than God. But I was like, I think I could do a podcast, and like, I think I could get it monetized. Like, my goal is like, I want to get enough money to like move out and like get groceries. Like, that's my goal. Is like, to me, that will be. It is. I've said this. I have found it is more difficult to make money doing what you like than it is to get into medical school. So to me, it's like the ultimate. It's like the ultimate challenge. It's almost like a form of alchemy, to turn doing what you love into $1. You know, you can make something cool. You can make cool artwork. You can post it online. You can get 1 million likes.
Absolutely.
But at what point do you turn it into $1? And to me, that it's just this mysterious thing. It's this. If I can turn doing what I like into money, to me that, and like I said, not so I can be Osho and whip around in Rolls Royce. No, like if I could pay for a gym membership, an apartment, put gas in my car, and get some chicken at the store, doing what I like, to me that's like nirvana. That's like actualization. Like I have done what I've come on earth to do. And
that's beautiful.
I appreciate it, man. And that's what I'm trying to do. And
take it your own way.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I love it because everyone your episode number 31. I don't have 1,000 episodes to show people, So everyone that comes on right now, I'm so thankful for, because they don't fucking know me. They're taking a chance and be like, sure, I'll give you an hour and a half of my day. That's what I'm trying. Yeah, I started December 12th, 2019. And I was like, so I just started this thing, and it's
nice.
It's already grown faster than I could have imagined, and it's more importantly, it's more fucking fun than I ever could have imagined. Like, just
that's
it's
great,
like
man.
I'm sitting here listening, and you're like, he's a ninja. That's not a good enough answer. I'm laughing more on a day-to-day basis than I ever have in my life, and yeah, man, that's what I'm trying to do with this.
Good on you. Good on you, mate, as they say in Australia.
Thank you. But yeah, man, hey, thanks for doing it. Dude, you're a funny motherfucker. You're always welcome to come back on if you just want to shoot the shit about whatever. If you've got other stories, you have to come back on. You have to.
All right, man. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah.
Just shoot the shit, and maybe something interesting will come up.
Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah, dude, yeah. It doesn't have to be about experiences. Just come on and just fucking talk shit. It doesn't need,
right.
That's what I tell everyone. Like, I had one girl on who was like a power lifter. She's like, what are we going to talk about? I was like, we can talk about anything. I had another dude on that flew drones for the Air Force. He's like, what are we going to talk about? I was like, dude, we can talk about ice skating gorillas. I don't give a fuck. Like, we can do whatever. But, yeah, kind of a long answer. That's about all I got to say about that. That was some poor Australian Forrest Gump. But, hey, dude, I appreciate it. I always edit the sound, and it should be up by tonight. I'll send you the link to it.
Beautiful,
dude. Thank you, and hey, I'm glad.
Thanks, Thomas.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Hey, I'm
fun, man.
Yeah, I'm glad
you're doing good work.
I'm glad you're doing good. If
I am.
If
doing great.
If anyone else comes up to you and they have an intriguing offer, talk to me. All right, and I'll be like, hey, dude, I'm gonna have you watch your episode again and be like, stay the fuck away from these guys. All right, bro.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, man. Take care. Have a great night.
Keep on keeping on, brother.
I will, man. Take care, buddy. Peace.
Peace.